So I think with the win of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I think the world's view of the United States now is a much more positive one. Certainly, you're hearing from both of them and from their administration that America is back. America is rebuilding its relationships with its allies around the globe. America is certainly keen to re-engage. So I think it bodes really well for brand USA. The last 4 years, the country has been perceived quite negatively in most of the world. There's some fantastic research that tracks the opinion of key leaders in business and politics, in NGOs, in the media, about how America is perceived. And that research comes from Pew, the Pew Charitable Trust. All of it's online. And if you look at the track record over the last several years, you'll see that the world was not interested really in the United States. But we've seen in only a matter of weeks the world's interest, and especially the interest of business leaders, to reconsider their growth plans in the United States. And I think, frankly, that's a direct result of the fact that the brand is improving, and that we are doing things as Americans to reintegrate. So whether it's the WHO, it's the Paris Climate Accord, and no end of global institutional memberships, America is certainly back, and I'm very relieved personally that that's the case and that interest in the country seems to be rebounding. Our habits have been forming and becoming more permanent. So for retailers to get us out of our pajamas and to get us away from a screen, to tackle snow, bad weather, finding car parking, taking public transport to go to their destinations, whether they are standalone in a city center or they are within a shopping mall. I think they're going to have to be more creative and immersive in what they do once we show up in their stores. So it's about the service, it's about the friendliness, it's about the generosity, it's about the education, about the product or the service that is available in that location versus what we could otherwise do through a screen. And I think retailers really need to rethink that element of their value proposition. Is it compelling? Is it going to bring me and others back into a store physically? And once you have me there face to face, it's going to need to be memorable and different from all the other stores around it. So I think those are some big challenges. I think retailers can rise to them, but I think they need to be aware that it doesn't come for free. It requires some thinking, it requires some strategic planning, and most importantly, it requires some investment. I think the biggest challenge for retailers in 2021 in Europe, I think, is going to be the fact that many retailers have disappeared from various high streets and shopping centers. And I think the challenge is really not just for those operators of those centers, but it's also for the city planners, because now these high streets have vacant spaces, and they have many of them. Now, those vacant spaces mean that the tax revenue that accrues to those cities is no longer, because of those retailers no longer operating from physical sites. They're now often online, and often also, due to COVID, no longer. So I think one of the biggest challenges is really going to be how to replace that lost revenue that used to be from retailers, and how will cities and shopping center developers and operators now make money in their absence. So repurposing these sites for public use for the communities that they serve is going to need to be part of the answer. Now, perhaps these become further education destinations. Perhaps these become locations for religious services. Perhaps these become locations for demonstrations of cookery, of art classes, of hobbies, of teaching music. There's going to have to be some community element now to these vacant sites, instead of them becoming or staying as purely retail destinations. Because, let's face it, the economies in Europe now, because of COVID, have taken a hit, and a quite significant one. So I think some creative thinking is going to be required on behalf of the city planners, on behalf of the retailers around these vacant sites, to think about some synergy that can be and footfall that can be created because of a reinvention of the high street and these locations. I think it's not an easy challenge to tackle, but I think it is doable.